Good afternoon. I'd like to start the regular meeting of the June 27th, 2018 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. I'll call it to order. The first item that I will mention, if anyone's here with respects to the Dayton Brown application, that has been withdrawn, so it will not be presented or talked about today. That being said, looking at the consideration of minutes for the regular meeting of May 23rd, are there any additions or changes to those minutes? If not, we will take as submitted. Under new business, the first item is a variance request. It's application Z18039 by Black Mountain Builders. It's requesting a 5-foot variance from the City of Murfreesboro zoning ordinance chart 2, requiring a 10-foot side setback for a new house constructed 5.9 feet from the side property line. Property is zoned single family residential RS12, located at 2615 Ritz Lane. Ms. Rush, if you would review that application for us.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. The applicant, Mr. Denton, is requesting a 5-foot variance from the required side yard setback of 10 feet. This is for a single-family house that has already been constructed at 2615 Ritz Lane. The house is not occupied, and City Codes has not yet issued a certificate of occupancy. As you can see on the next screen, the requested site plan, a portion of the house, the northwest portion of the house, would be encroaching into the side yard setback, as well as the HVAC. The property is approximately 12,100 square feet in size and is generally a trapezoid shape with a narrower portion in the rear. It measures approximately 136 feet depth by 120 feet width and has approximately 60 feet width at the rear. This particular property is zoned RS12, which does require 12,000 square foot minimum lot size, so the lot is in conformance with the zoning. Shown on the next screen, Mr. Denton has explained in his request letter that in the field he incorrectly located and measured from the property pins that were out there in the field, but he had selected the wrong pin, which offset everything. His letter, he stated that he had been in contact with the City of Murfreesboro Planning Department regarding the possible encroachment. At that point, he halted the construction in order to get a surveyor to confirm. Mr. Denton contracted with SCC to resurvey the property, and it was confirmed that a 9-foot section of the house and the HVAC equipment were over the side yard setback. As shown in this screen, there is a property line. You can see where the string is located. That is the property line for the side yard setback. So in terms of the variance itself, the subject property is similar in size and shape as other properties on Ritz Lane and in the Celebration Park subdivision. There was no evidence provided that this property has a unique hardship or is impractical for development of a house, including the current design within the required setbacks for the RS12. We also received some correspondence from the adjacent neighbors. The one that's adjoining this property, 2611 Ritz Lane, is the one that is most affected. She submitted a letter as well as photographs in strong opposition to the variance. The resident across the street as well has sent a letter indicating the views from her house are not pleasant and would like the house to conform with the required setbacks. As we know, for findings for a variance, the required findings is that the variance would not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, would not unreasonably increase the congestion in public streets, it would not increase the danger of fire or endanger public health, safety, and welfare. In this case, there may be an argument about the light onto the adjacent neighbor. Maybe there would be creating some shadows. It's unknown at this point. For the variance standards, variances could not be granted for ones that are self-created. In this case, it was self-created because they did construct the house in its location. The applicant is also required to show that the bulk and other variances would not be unduly detrimental to the property in the vicinity, that there's unusual circumstances about this property, and that was not demonstrated because this parcel is in compliance with the minimum lot size for the zone. It is similar in shape and size. The problem was a mistake that was made in the field, and it's not related to the property in itself. The applicant is here today to talk about maybe what had occurred. We also have the building official from the city of Murfreesboro, Robert Holtz, is here in case you have any questions of him as well. And they can maybe discuss what the possible cure would be. If the variance is not granted, it would have to be brought into conformance. And that would either be achieved by relocating the house or removing a portion of the house to bring it into conformance. That concludes my presentation.
All right. Any questions from the board with respects to Ms. Rush before we open up the public hearing?
No, sir.
All right. If not, Mr. Denton, would you like to speak to the application? Okay, come on up. If you will, state your name and address just for the record.
Sam Denton, 4217 Princeton Oaks Lane, Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Go ahead.
I'd like to just give a brief explanation of what happened in the field. If you guys have got a plat in front of you, or the exhibit.
Yes.
To the right rear, there's two pins. They are 11.01 apart, and the total across the back is 5812. Normally, on a plat, you would add those together, the 11.1 and the 58.12, for a total of 69.13. If you'll look at the photo exhibit, there was a stake, there was a pin there the day we did it. And this is in a drainage ditch, which they've adjusted, you know, come through, and everything kind of sits like this, pin-wise. We pulled that day, that morning, that February morning, and we landed on that, what we thought to be the correct stake. And therefore, there is the mistake. It's exactly, if you look in photo 3, it's exactly 11.01 off.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Denton at this point?
I'm sorry. You're referring to on the plat two pins.
Yes, sir.
One that would be your corner pin, and the other would be the corner pin to the lot to the rear.
Correct.
And that's that's 11 feet.
11.01. Yes, sir.
And so the absence of the pin at the corner on lot 34 is where your mistake lies.
Correct. Yes.
There was not a pin there.
But there was a stake.
There was a stake, but
There
not
was
a
a
pin.
stake there. I was out there measuring yesterday. The stake's not there, but the hole's still there because we went back and pulled our measurements again yesterday. And the hole's still there. And, you know, normally coming across the back, you take each of those numbers and add them between, just like in an arc or whatever. You know how it works. And, I mean, it was an honest mistake.
Well, wouldn't the stake to the rear of the property, wouldn't that have measured further to the front of the road than what would be in the survey? If you were using that rear property's pin, wouldn't you have gotten a different number if you measured from that?
No, it added, no. When we pulled from the front to the rear, we had the right number.
It was exactly the same number as what's on the survey?
From the
even
plat.
though it wasn't the same pin and they're 11 feet apart?
No, we came out right. I mean, on the back and from the front to back, and that's why we went with it. from the plat we were using. And this thing's been revised, and like I said, that ditch has been adjusted.
Did your builder measure that also?
Yeah,
You are the builder.
I'm the builder and the foundation subcontractor. We both, yeah. It took us an hour and a half to get that thing, but we believed it to be right.
But you didn't have a surveyor there.
No.
And when you measured from that pin, there's 2 pins in the upper corner of the plat.
Correct.
One is a pin in the middle of this property, and the other one is the corner pin. When you measured from that middle of the property pin to the front of the road pin, it was the same number that was on the survey.
It was the same, yeah. On the left side, it's 121.32, and on the right, it's 143.89. And I brought the plat that we used that morning.
Did you check the front of the lot where you would be? You had a radius on the, the shape of the front of the lot. You had 67.67 to one pin, and then 47.40 to the other pin. But even with that, there's a radius to it, so that's not even exact. Did you use that as a measurement?
We did.
That took you off then because of the radius. I don't have the survey plat, but it's not referenced on that plat. You have a slight angle. Obviously, you have an irregular shaped lot.
Correct.
Because of the radius or the curvature of the front of the lot, and I don't have those dimensions. But if you used those dimensions, you would have been off. If you measured the front line with those dimensions that are shown on the plat, you didn't include like L18, which is where your curvature is. You would have been off, possibly.
Well, no, we had the curve data and the line data. I mean, like I said, we had a full plat.
Okay.
We believed it to be correct.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Nope.
All right. All right, thank you, Mr. Denton.
Thank you.
All right. We will go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak for or against this application, if you'll come up to the podium and again state your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Vicki Montgomery. You have a letter in the packet. I'm at 2615 Ritz Lane, and I'm across the street. And if you have any questions about the letter, but I am in opposition. The builder has built so many homes around the ones in back, the 34, not 34, but 31. He's built both of those behind it. So I would think he would have known the pins from those properties doing those developments, but I am in opposition to it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up.
My name is Lisa Howell. I live adjacent to the house that was built at 2615. We're at 2611. When the house was originally started, the back corner, it's angled in such a way that back corner is right at our den window. When you look out our window, when you sit on our couch, you literally can see them on their porch. You can see them in their bathroom. It's really, you just almost have to look at the back, and there's not a photo of that. We understand mistakes were made. We had no idea about there was a 10-foot setback. We didn't realize that until we had an issue with him tearing our yard up when they were landscaping, and I had sent an email to them and got a response within a couple of days, and it got fixed this week, kind of. As far as the pins go, I had never, ever looked at a plat map before in my life. And I was able to look at the plat map and say, you know what, this is our home. There's 86 feet behind us. Let's measure. It's not rocket science. I mean, honest to God, it's so easy to read it. And then you start from the right corner over to the house that's being built on the other side. And I just feel like he built the house behind. He knew where the stake was. He built the house on the corner. He's on the other side of me, and he's on the right side. And we're sandwiched in. We're literally sandwiched in between two homes that aren't in compliance. Neither one.
Thank you.
But we're only addressing the new build. We're not addressing the one at 2607, which is also not in compliance.
Correct. Anyone else that would like to speak for or against this application? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Questions, comments from the board? Or silence?
Well, we'll speak on that. From the findings that we have from staff's research, I guess the conditions with which we would make a finding of fact for a variance or approval of a variance, those three particular conditions haven't been met. Is that correct?
In staff's opinion, they have not.
Okay. And we, in the limited time I've been on this board, where we have had situations similar where there was encroachments. One in particular that I know that came up before this body twice was denied. First, pretty much the same reasons. In that particular situation, similar. The shape the lot was fairly similar, and in their case, they didn't do quite that much due diligence, but likewise, there was a failure to verify that one particular pin, that probably is where this all resulted. So I don't see where we've got, based on the findings of the staff here, I don't see where we have any way that we could approve such a variance. Now, I don't know hopefully there's some other professionals here that can tell us what remediation they might have, but just from the request of the variance, I don't see how we can approve it.
The comment that mistakes are definitely made. You would hope that there would be a remedy to the problem without having to tear something out. But Mr. Tips is right. We had an application where that's exactly what we made the applicant do once they got into the setback. In their case, in that application, that applicant was made aware on two different occasions, it looked like, at least with respects to the documentation that was brought before us by the existing neighbor. They were notified. I also recall, and I don't know how long ago it was, but since I've been on this board, where a builder had a similar situation, didn't go off the right stake. However, the lot next to it had not been built on yet. And so they were able to work out where they moved the property line to be able to abide by the setback variance that was, and then so from that, hence, there wasn't even a variance that was needed at that point in time. In this situation, it doesn't look like that's a possibility based upon the next door neighbor. I mean, there's not enough room there to buy something from somebody to make this happen, to be able to settle it in that fashion. So it is definitely a difficult situation.
Well, Mr. City Attorney, without any motions, does this request die?
Well, I probably need to request if we have any motions, so.
If there is no motion, then yes, the application, the request would fail for lack of a motion.
Well, I don't know that I've called for it, so
No.
does anyone have a motion one way or the other?
It's just unfortunate that has to be, I guess, so much of it removed. But we do have to stick by the rules.
We didn't hear from
Codes?
codes
Okay.
of possible remedies.
I
And
agree.
that may be informative.
Yes,
That would be.
that's why I asked the question.
Mr. Holtz?
Do you have a question?
Well, I mean, what are the
Do you have a
remedies?
question, I
from-
guess, for Robert, for Mr.
Yeah.
Holmes?
If any.
That all really is in his court, other than just, I don't know how practical it would be to remove that corner of the house, relocate a bathtub, I believe. I mean, other options to remove all the brick and possibly move the house so it's within the setbacks. Those are the only real remedies I know of. Now, I don't know if he's put any other thought into it, but it's going to require moving a portion of the structure.
I just want to say this is very difficult, and it's not unique. As you said, last year we had one variance that was requested, and they had to remove the portion that was extended in. There was another one that's in another jurisdiction, it's in the county, where they had their variance denied, and they actually had to remove the building exterior of the house and put the house up on rollers and move the house onto a new foundation to comply. So I guess my point is, it's not unique. It's a very difficult situation, but it's not a unique situation.
Thank you, Mr. Holtz. That being said, is there a motion or any other comments that the board has?
I just wonder if it could be deferred until maybe something could be worked out. Maybe look at your plans again and see if there's anything you can do.
Well, there wouldn't be, and again, correct, there wouldn't be any, say we make a motion to deny this request, it's not going to keep them from coming back and reapplying in the future with another plan, would it? That would meet compliance?
Well, actually, I don't know that he would need to come back if he would need to figure out a way to comply to relocate some or all of the house so that it is not encroaching into the setback.
You wouldn't need a variance.
But
True.
he wouldn't need to come back to get any other kind of variance or any other kind of relief. He would just have to abide by the setback, move whatever is necessary to make it abide by the setback.
Do we have a motion or? Doesn't look like we have a motion at all. So, Mr. Ives, back to your comment before, if we have no motion from the board, I guess that is just as a denial.
Generally, it would be. Let me look at something within the zoning ordinance for a moment, if I may.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion to deny the request on the basis of the research conducted by the staff and the facts that were presented today with our and precedent that we already have. I'm going to make a motion that we deny the request.
Does zoning ordinance does provide that the BZA must make specific written findings of fact on each of the standards for a variance in either granting or denying the variance. So, and that.
I think Mr. Tips has explained the reason for his denial motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Sam, that motion has been denied. Your application's been denied. Hopefully, you can get it worked out one way or the other. Thank y'all. Well, moving on to application Z18040 by Andy Engelhardt for George Bernardakakis, and I'm sure I butchered that. I apologize. Requesting a 6-foot variance from the City of Murfreesboro zoning ordinance, Chart 2, requiring 12.5 feet side setback for an addition of 7.5 feet from the side property line. Property is zoned single-family residential, RS15, located at 1442 Kensington Drive. Ms. Rush, if you would review that application for us, please.
Yes, thank you. The applicant, Mr. Engelhardt, is requesting a 6-foot variance from the required side setback of 12.5 feet. The proposed house addition would be constructed on the garage side, measuring approximately 11 feet width by 16 feet in length. The existing house has an attached garage, and the exterior wall is 17.8 feet from the property line. The side setback is 12.5 feet, so there is approximately 5 feet and change between the exterior wall and the setback, the required side yard setback. The property size for this project is 15,000 square feet approximately, consistent with the RS15 zoning district. It is, as shown on the aerial, clearly rectangular in shape, very consistent with other properties in that neighborhood. As shown on the screen, the requested variance is in the shaded area, and it would extend into the setback approximately 5 feet. The purpose of this addition is to house a handicap accessible ramp as well as a restroom, according to the applicant's letter. The subject property, as I indicated, is similar in size. I've included a section from the ADA guidelines in the staff report that shows that the minimum width for an ADA ramp is 36 inches or 3 feet in width. And then the ramp, if you have a landing at the bottom, at the top, that would be 5 foot in width. So in the case of housing a handicap accessible ramp, there is sufficient room within the existing building footprint so that you would not have to encroach into the side yard setback. So the additional 6 feet that the applicant's asking for is above and beyond what would be necessary for an ADA ramp. And as in this case, no evidence was provided that this property has any unique hardship resulting in any impractical issues. The subject property is similar in size and shape as others in the subdivision. There are alternatives if they don't want to put the ramp on the side of the house because it would be too narrow. You could still access a ramp to the front door. So there's some options that they can have to accomplish what they want. This is a view on the screen of the side of the house that they're proposing. Where the ramp would be located is pretty much where the shrubs are now, is up to the sidewalk. And it would, I think, enter that door. At least the drawing that's shown is that it's just before the door is where the addition would end. So it's not very clear from the drawing just how those would interact. I'll go back to the drawing. As you could see on the drawing, it stops short just of the doorway. So staff is recommending not support of this variance because it does not meet the variance standings. This would be, there's nothing unique or hardship relating to the property. This would be of their own making, a structure that they're choosing to do. The letter that their request was for the variance indicated a lot of this was for aesthetic purposes, and they felt that enclosing it and putting it on the side of the house would be a much better aesthetic for the neighborhood, and that was the reason for the location. I can answer any questions from the board and the applicants here, and of course the building official can respond to anything as well, especially when it comes to the ADA accessible code and requirements. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Rush? If not, we will, Mr. Englehart, you want to come and speak for the applicant?
Yes, good afternoon. My name's Andy Englehart, 1414 Mercury Boulevard here in Murfreesboro. Mr. Vernardicus is a personal friend of mine for several years, and he and I have been talking about this over the last several months over this very issue, that what he wants to do does encroach on the setback. He, understanding that, has said, please proceed and see if we can get it done. He is currently in Greece, so that's why I'm here on his behalf. He goes there in the summer for a couple of months. As stated, he is desiring to make his house more accessible as he's aging. He has been a resident of this city for 30 plus years, maybe 40, I forget. He's a professor at the university, and he desires to not ever leave his home. He is handicapped in that he has a permanent handicap tag. He's not incapacitated yet, so he's trying to do this to get ahead of the ball, so to speak. It is for aesthetics. He does like his house. He does like his neighborhood. He was one of the original owners in that development when it was all under new construction. He does not want to see a handicap ramp coming up the front of his house. It's a temporary structure. We all realize that it is aesthetic. Marina explained that to me at the very outset. But still, that's his desire. It is for the purpose of a ramp and a modern handicap bathroom that meets ADA codes. It is a little impractical to go inside his house and redo it, only from the sense that it would probably cost more money to restructure his house versus simply adding on. The other purpose is for the handicap ramp to be enclosed for access from his garage. So that's the purpose for the location on that side of the house. I do have precedent that in 2011 another variance was granted in this neighborhood for much the same purpose. I did not present that in the information y'all have, but I have copies here in my possession currently. They requested a variance and were granted it, coming within 5 feet of the property line. And so that's what the request is. It will be done in a permanent appeal with brick, matching windows, matching roof line, so that it does look like it's meant to be there, and certainly not a temporary structure. That's it.
Tribes, would it be appropriate for him to be able to show us this variance he's speaking of that was, because I don't recall that one way or the other?
Yeah, he can do that, yes.
Okay.
You can consider that.
Bring it up.
Yes, sir.
Please, if you've got an extra.
I've got plenty.
Thank you, Andy.
Sure he does. We've done so many in our day.
Thank you. I was not aware of this variance, but Mr. Vernardicus knew about it when it happened. And he just said, bring that up to their attention, please.
The map on the screen shows with the addressing where that particular property is located. It's 1547. Their backyard fronts along the pond. And the next screen is a blow-up version of that where you can see the addition. So there was a variance that was granted in 2011. And the applicant's correct, it was for 5 feet. The findings in the staff report for that particular variance, I can read through it real quickly. It was due to the rear of the lot was used as a berry pit for debris associated with the construction of the subdivision. And according to the applicants, because of the improper fill that was in the backyard, that particular building addition, they requested a variance. So to put it on the side of the house because the rear was not something that was buildable. So that was the findings at that particular point. I guess I just want to make a note that the circumstances for this property is different. Obviously, it's not a berry pit, issue, and if they wanted to build in the rear, I suppose they could, but that's not the same type of project. But I did want to disclose what that variance in the findings and what was requested for the purpose of the board.
Even though I said I don't remember this, my name's on it, so I was here.
It's been a while.
Any questions for Mr. Engelhardt?
No, but thank you for the information. I think his evidence there I'd like to ask a question of staff because when we look at these things as far as whether they would meet the standards for variance, one of them is the self-created part, correct? And that always, is this situation something you self-created? And back to the example, 2011, that berry pit was not self-created, and that's what constituted their reason for granting the variance, correct?
Not only was not self-created, but it was a unique situation to that lot and maybe a couple of others next to it. I don't know the extent of that berry pit, but it was a unique situation to have that amount from, I vaguely remember the discussions, that have that amount of bad fill in a backyard that would be very difficult, if not virtually impossible to deal with.
I think with the project, we have to look at the facts on its face value for the one that's before you. Mm-hmm. And, and again, from my understanding, if it was for an ADA accessible ramp, there is sufficient width for them to construct the ramp there within the existing setbacks. There would be no need for variance. So it's hard to find the findings, although it's a very difficult situation, and I feel for the applicant and the owner. I don't see where the findings are, and the applicant did not provide any evidence to support that. So the onus is on the applicant to put their best foot forward in how they meet the findings of the variance. It's not up to staff to try and do that for them. So I just didn't see the evidence as presented in the letter.
All right, before we get too far down this road, we haven't had the public hearing. So, right. Mr. Engelhardt, do you have anything else to add?
Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The drawing indicates that this addition would be very close to the front of the house.
Yes.
But I thought I heard you say that the access would be from the garage.
Yes. If you can pull that photo back up that shows the side of the house. The reason I didn't go to any more detail on the actual plans is due to, first of all, seeing if it'd even be granted.
Understand that,
But the entry to the garage you see right by the trash can
yes,
would actually be closed in. and a new entrance brought up towards the front of the garage. So we are proposing about a 2-foot setback from that corner of the garage, and the door would be cut into the existing wall of the house, probably 3 feet back from the corner, and it would go enter into the house at that window just prior to the chimney. That is a utility room. That short window right over the trash can. So it would be from corner of house to that window right before you get to the chimney. And the reason I might add for the extra width is not just for the ramp, but for the bathroom also. If they were wanting just a ramp, it would be within the setbacks they could do it. But we envision seeing a ramp come up and turn instead of having such a long ramp, so that they can create the full-size bathroom. So
Okay, the bathroom would have 2 doors, one into the house, one back down to the ramp, right?
correct.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, I see what you... So I take it the house is a couple, 3 feet above the floor level of the garage?
About 2.5.
2.5, okay.
King.
So that's kind of, I was confused as to where the bathroom was and where the ramp would be. So the bathroom would be behind the ramp. And
Yes, the
ramp
bathroom would be
from the garage
towards the chimney end.
to you're
they could-
creating a ramp first and then a bathroom behind.
Correct.
Not at one side by side.
And it's not, you can get bathrooms in 6 by 8 feet, but we're looking at more something to where they can actually have a full-size handicap tub, wheelchair accessibility, which takes up a little more room.
Thanks, Andy.
All right.
All right, we will now open up the public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak for or against this application, please come forward. Again, if you'll state your name and your address for us, please.
My name's Jenny Lynn Moore, and I live in 1446 Kensington Drive, which is the property next door to 1442. And I did send in an email to Miss Marina, and mainly we're just concerned about the view, because this addition, and I brought pictures now, I didn't send them in, completely blocks the view from our deck to the front street, where we can see people walking down the street. And we spend a lot of time on the deck too. And then also the proximity of this addition to the side of our house. As we look out the dining room window, it'll only be about 24 foot, and it'll just be a brick wall. And it spoils that view too. And that's mainly what we're concerned about.
Well,
And-
that's not
and-
all now. Now that we've heard some more details about what the addition is going to be, could you bring that picture back up of the side of the house where he's going to put this? He's indicated that this addition is initially designed for the garage, the addition on the garage. He has just proposed that that door is going to be moved backwards toward that window, or maybe even where the window is, I'm not sure. But that's the utility room that he was talking about. So if the door is going to be moved back that far, the addition onto the house is going to go back almost completely to the chimney instead of just the garage. So he's putting an addition almost on half of this side of the house. And you see how he's got the side of the house decorated there, which is very nice. I would think if he's going to put an addition on, they do plan to add shrubs or whatever to the addition on the side, which would be even further toward our property line. So instead of maybe 5 feet left now, you may have 2 or 3 feet if you're going to add decoration to the side of your house. The other thing is, Well, he did say that the ramp would be enclosed and a new door put there. But like Ms. Marina has said earlier, there is sufficient room to put a ramp there now. And if they're going to have a new door there, the ramp could be built to the new door as well as the existing door. So we're just pointing out some things here that you may or may not have thought of. You probably have. And the other thing, like my wife pointed out, if you put an addition that far out, it just blocks the complete view
Would you like to see this?
of the street from our deck.
You want to share it? That's fine, yes. And if you don't mind, I don't know that we got your name for the record.
My name is Albert Moore.
Okay, thank you.
That was just the difference between the property and the west.
If you could state your name in the record.
She did. Yeah.
Can we ask a question of them?
Sure.
So, I understood what your feelings was about this, having this addition and how you feel it's going to obstruct your view, and how I guess maybe the unsightliness of it. How you going to feel about a ramp that can be put there within the codes and perfectly? How you going to feel about that?
That's fine if somebody's handicapped.
That's not going to affect your view.
Fine. Yeah.
If he's handicapped, I don't have a problem with the ramp being there. I'm sure he would like for it to be enclosed, but, as far as having the handicap bathroom there, there's sufficient number of bathrooms inside the house. Possibly one of those could be converted or remodeled to a handicap bathroom.
But the main thing is it's the brick structure, and then the shadow from it. Looking out the dining room and the window, it will be there. And then the view, we sit on the deck every night. And that view will be completely gone because we went out there and researched all of that.
Right, but
you'd
you'd see a ramp out there. And
well, a ramp within a 5-foot variance, that's very different. Right?
Okay.
That's a whole different thing. There's no brick wall. There's no brick wall, right? So, if somebody needs a ramp because they're handicapped, of course, that's fine. We haven't seen anybody in a wheelchair, but that's beside the point, right?
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak for or against this application? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Comments, questions, motions from the board?
I don't have anything to add or detract.
Okay. I don't know if this is appropriate for the chair to say something or not, but this whole self-created thing, based upon the last application and this application, I can't get past the whole self-created issue part of how we approve these variances. So I'm not going to be in favor of this.
I concur.
Make a motion then.
So would we have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we deny this request based on staff's comments, how this is self-created and it's not, that there's other options available to them in that situation. So,
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Having a motion and a second to deny the correct application. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That application's been denied. Thank you all for coming. As mentioned at the beginning of this hearing or whatever meeting, the application for Dayton Brown has been withdrawn, so we'll move on to application Z18042 by Huddleston Steel. William Duke for Jennifer Gilman Morrison, requesting an 11-foot landscape variance from the City of Murfreesboro zoning ordinance, Section 24, Article 3, GDO, requiring 20 feet planting yard. Property is zoned Highway Commercial and Gateway Overlay District, located at Home Depot Subdivision, Phase 3, Lot 2B, along Robert Rose Drive. Ms. Rush, if you will review that application for us, please.
Yes, thank you. This is one of the last remaining parcels or vacant areas that was part of the Home Depot subdivision. As you can see in the photograph on the screen, that half of the property has already been developed with a multi-tenant commercial building and associated parking and a landscape buffer. This was done prior to our current GDO, or Gateway Development Overlay District, standards for buffer and streetscape landscaping. If this remaining portion of the property were to develop under our current regulations, the parking as well as the landscaping would be offset from what's existing in there now, and could create a potential for unsafe conditions in the on-site circulation for the parking area. These requirements for landscaping have changed. They were changed by the city to no fault of the property owners. So they're dealing with a different set of rules than what they had before. This is a photograph of what the property looks like. It's not that large in size. And side-by-side comparison of the parking and landscape buffer to what is not developed at this point. The applicant, again, has made a justification that this was not of his own making because it was the city that changed the rules after they had already acquired the property. They just had not developed under the old rules. Staff is supportive of this particular request for that reason. The applicant is represented by Mr. Clyde from Huddleston Steel and is here to answer questions from the board if you have any. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Rush?
No.
The entirety of the parking lot would not have to change if we denied this. Would they have to change their entire landscape buffer, or would it only apply to the portion of the property that has not been developed?
It's just the portion of the property that's not developed. The existing landscape buffer, as you can see, was pretty nicely vegetated, complied with the old rules, so it does not comply with the new rules.
Okay.
So no, they wouldn't have to change that under any circumstances. But as you can see where things line up, the property to the east that's also developed, what's proposed is a buffer between those two properties because that is a property line that separates the two. So they would not have ingress, egress circulation between the two at all. There's landscape strip between those two that's proposed. This was before the Planning Commission for a preliminary design review, conceptual review as a GDO project. That was this week, I believe.
And just to make a comment with respects to what Ms. Rush just said, we reviewed the design and the makeup of the building materials, and Mr. Ives or Ms. Rush, either one can correct me if I'm wrong, but the actual materials would not meet the GDO guidelines as we speak today. But it was the planning department's opinion that if they had to meet what the requirements were today, that it would not look right. So for the same reasons that Ms. Rush is mentioning today with respects to in favor of the landscape variance, was the same reasons why the Planning Commission was in favor of not requiring the building materials that are in today's guidelines, because it just wouldn't look right. So I'll just make that comment, because unless you got to watch it on television, you wouldn't have heard that discussion. Mr. Roundtree, would you like to say anything to or regarding this application?
Thank you, Ken. My name is Clyde Roundtree, Huddleston Steel Engineering, and really, as Ken mentioned, this is really a result of aesthetics. To come in compliance with, like Julie mentioned, kind of shifting the driveway, which would be kind of curious. But really, if you drive by the site, it's really kind of recessed back. The landscaping is pretty intense. It's very full and lush. our client's desire is to keep that consistent, to make sure that it looks that way all the way throughout. So, so with that in mind, it was really just to stay consistent was really the goal, both in the architecture of the building and in the geometry of the parking lot layout. And as Ken mentioned, the Planning Commission didn't have any issue with it because they really wrestled with trying to see if there's a way to bring it up to a more of a current standard, but it probably create more of an inconsistency and a chaotic look versus more of a clean kind of systematic look that's kind of there now. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions from Mr. Roundtree?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And seeing no one else in this room, I will, I guess we haven't even opened the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing, and then I will close the public hearing at the same time. Yeah. That being said,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the request for variance based on the recommendations of the staff.
any, do we have a second or any other comments or questions?
I'll second.
I have a comment.
Okay.
I don't see anything wrong with the old standard. I think it looks perfectly well. I don't really understand why we would need to be any more excessive than what it already is.
So noted.
Because it changed.
All right, we have a motion and a second and a comment. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Your application passes. Thank you, Mr. Roundtree. Staff reports or other business?
Just wanted to make an announcement for the BZA board meeting in July next month. One of the items on the agenda will be to appoint the BZA chair and vice chair. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up on that.
Is that the 25th of July?
I mean,
We will elect
I will be
Mr. Young
absent.
by absentee.
I will be absent. For the record.
Plot away.
He's absent today.
Yes.
Not next time. I don't think we can move that up.
All right. Anything else?
I have nothing.
Oh, we got somebody in the audience raising his hand. Well,
Wait.
why don't we do it? Let's close the meeting. Yeah. That being said, seeing no other business, our meeting is adjourned.